This is Stephen Cyrus Saper in the Conversation Podcast by the Immigrant Storyteller, and welcome to the show. When you watch a film, when you see a performance, when you see someone become a star, who actually decided that? Was it a director? Was it a studio? Or was it the audience? Or was it someone you've never seen before? Sitting in an office somewhere, making a call, connecting one person to another. That's an interesting thought. And quietly deciding who gets into the room. Because today, we're not talking about actors. We're not talking about directors. We're talking about agents. And not just any agency. We're talking about William Morris. Now, you might hear that name and think, okay, talent agency, Hollywood representation, blah, 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 blah. But that's the surface. That's not what it is. William Morris is not just an agency. It's a foundation of how Hollywood power actually works. And to understand that, we have to slow it down for a second, because this didn't start in Hollywood. It started in 1898 New York, vaudeville. There's a man, an immigrant. Name is William Morris. And what he does is very simple on paper. He books acts. That's it. But then something shifts. Instead of booking one performer, he starts bundling it up together. He puts them into entire shows. And then he sells the shows. Now that's a concept. That sounds small, but it's not. Because what he just did is he moved from I represent talent to I control what gets sold. Brilliant. And that right there is the birth of the modern agency power. So by the time film shows up, by the time Hollywood starts forming, William Morris isn't catching up. He's already ahead, because he understands something very clearly. It's not about talent, it's about access to talent. Fast forward and you get to the 1940s and 1950s, and something very specific starts happening inside the agency. They built what becomes known as the mailroom. And this is important, because nobody walks in as an agent. Nobody walks in with power. You start in the fucking mailroom. You sort envelopes. You observe. You learn. You understand who's talking to who matters, who doesn't, who's rising and who's falling. And over time, you move up. Now, if you see books about many agents or managers in the industry, 99.9% of the people work in the mailroom. It's a fascinating way, but it's a way to learn. Now, here's what matters. Because this system didn't just create employees, it created operators. People who understand timing, leverage, relationships, psychology. And the people who came out of that mailroom didn't just stay at William Morris. They went out there and they built Hollywood as we know it. So now we move into the 1970s. And this is the thing that starts to get real. Because inside William Morris, you have people who are not loud, they're not public, they're not on magazine covers, but they're making decisions, real decisions. They're changing careers, elevating them. And one of them was, well, let's start with Norman Brokaw. This is not just someone chasing attention. This is not someone trying to be seen. This is someone who started in the mailroom and stayed decades, built relationships, sat across from talent again and again. And here's the key to Brokaw. He understood something very simple. The deal is not a deal. The relationship is the deal. So while everyone else is chasing the next big contract, the next big number, the next big win, he's doing something else. He's building trust over time. And that's a different kind of power, because when talent trusts you, they stay. And when they stay, they build leverage. When you build leverage, you don't chase opportunities. You create them. Now, at the same time, you've got people like Jim Wyatt. And Wyatt is different. He's looking at the system and saying, okay, it's not just about representing talent. It's about placing talent inside studios, inside projects, inside the ecosystems. So now the agent isn't just negotiating. He is positioning. He's thinking, where does this actor belong? What project elevates them? What director changes their trajectory? And that's a shift. Because now the agent becomes part strategist, part architect. But then something happens, and this is where everything changes. There are these young guys in the William Morris mailroom. They're watching all of this. They're learning. They're studying it. They're understanding how it works. But they're also seeing where it can go further. And one of those guys, his name was Michael Ovitz. Now, Ovitz doesn't stay. He leaves. In 1975, he starts something new called the Creative Artist Agency. And this is where we need to slow down again, because this is not just another agency. This is an evolution. William Morris built the system. Ovitz weaponized it. Instead of I represent actors, he says, I bring you the actor, the director, the script, and you, the studio, compete for it. Now think about that. That means the agency is no longer responding to Hollywood. Hollywood is responding to the agency. And that shift, that one move, is what starts to pull power away from William Morris. Because now you have full packaging, aggressive deal making, total control of the projects. And alongside Ovitz, you've got people like Richard Lovett, also trained in that system, also understanding relationships, but now operating in a new structure, more controlled, more strategic, less traditional. So now we're in the 1980s and 1990s, and you've got this tension. William Morris, the original institution, built on relationships, built on longevity, built on trust, and then you've got CAA, built on power. And in the middle of all that, you've got the talent. Now let's talk about that, because this is where people get confused. They think, oh, the agency represents the star. No. The agency helps create the star. You take someone like Robin Williams. That kind of talent doesn't just exist in a vacuum. You have to place it. You have to move with it from stand-up to television to film. You have to protect it. You have to expand it. That's the agency's work. And same thing with someone like Tom Hanks. Early career, he's not Tom Hanks yet. He's an actor. He's working. But the transition from working actor, leading man to a global star, that doesn't happen by accident. That's project selections, director alignments, timing, and behind all that, there are the agents making the calls. Same thing with Mel Gibson. Franchise positioning, international appeal, action to prestige projects. That movement is guided. So now you start seeing it clearly. The agent is not just reacting. They're shaping trajectories. Now we move into the 1990s and something else happens. Television explodes. Syndication money. Long-term revenue. And William Morris, this is where they stay very strong because they understand longevity. You look at major TV deals, miniseries, book adaptations. These are not quick wins. These are long plays. And William Morris was very good at that. But the industry keeps evolving, and eventually William Morris can't keep up with the aggression of CAA. The culture is different, the speed is different, the mindset is different. So what happens? In 2009, merger William Morris joins with Endeavor, and now we got WME. And this is where another figure comes in, Ari Emanuel. Now Ari is not old school. He's not subtle. He's not quiet. He's aggressive. He's direct. And he understands very clearly representation is not enough anymore. So what does he do? He expands into sports, media, ownership, UFC, events, content creation, and the agency is not just representing talent, it's sitting inside the system itself. So now we've moved from booking acts to packaging shows to controlling projects to owning infrastructure. And when you look at clients today, people like Dwayne Johnson, that's not just an actor, that's a brand. That's a business. That's global leverage. Same thing with athletes like Serena Williams. Representation becomes partnerships, equity, and long-term positioning. So now, when we sit back and we'll look at all of this from William Morris in 1898 to WME today, you start to see something very clearly. Hollywood didn't just evolve because of creativity. It evolved because of structure, because of relationships, timing, leverage, and access. The people controlling that were never the loudest people in the room. They were the ones listening and observing and connecting. So when you ask who built Hollywood, you can say the actors, the directors, the studios, but underneath it all, there is another layer. The people who decided who gets the meeting, who gets the role, and who gets the shot. And that is the real story of William Morris. And once you see that, you don't watch films the same way again. Because now, you're not just watching what's on the screen. You're thinking about who put them there. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Instagram. And thanks again for listening.